Imagine a plant so abundant across America that indigenous children collected its roots like candy. Yet today, it does not exist in a single grocery store. We have traded wild abundance for barren shelves. For thousands of years, the spring beauty produced tubers that tasted like sweet chestnuts mixed with water chestnuts, a texture so crisp and a flavor so delicate that early settlers called them fairy potatoes. But somewhere between the forest and the factory, we lost our connection to free food. The industrial system demanded uniformity. It demanded crops that could survive shipping, mechanized harvesting, and plastic packaging. This tiny tuber offered none of that. It offered only taste, nutrition, and the radical concept that food could grow without human interference. The Claytonia virginica was not domesticated because it refused to be tamed. It still grows wild across the eastern woodlands, still produces its sweet roots every spring, still offers itself freely to anyone willing to look down. Yet we walk past it, oblivious, on our way to buy potatoes, bred for storage, not flavor. The revolution begins when we remember what our ancestors knew by heart. The spring beauty tuber is no larger than a marble, yet it contains more concentrated sweetness than most cultivated roots. When you bite into a freshly dug fairy spud, you taste what potatoes were supposed to be before industrial breeding stripped them of character. The texture is crisp, almost crunchy, like a freshwater chestnut crossed with a raw hazelnut. The flavor is subtly sweet, nutty, with a clean finish that leaves no starchy aftertaste. Indigenous peoples across the eastern United States harvested these tubers as a staple carbohydrate source, particularly in early spring when other foods were scarce. They understood what modern agriculture has forgotten, that wild foods are not inferior versions of domestic crops. They are often nutritionally superior, more resilient, and infinitely more flavorful. The spring beauty produces these tubers as energy storage for the plant's early spring growth. The plant emerges in late winter, blooms with delicate pink-striped white flowers, then dies back by early summer. During this brief window, it concentrates sugars and starches into marble-sized tubers buried just inches below the leaf litter. Nature designed a perfect survival food. We designed a system that ignores it. Modern agriculture operates on a simple principle. If it cannot be mechanized, it does not exist. The spring beauty tuber is small, buried irregularly, and requires hand harvesting. No industrial harvester can efficiently collect marble-sized tubers scattered across a forest floor. No plastic bag can contain their delicate skins without bruising. No distribution system can handle a crop that appears for only 6 weeks each spring. So the solution was not innovation. The solution was erasure. We stopped teaching children that these plants were edible. We stopped including them in foraging guides. We let the knowledge die with the generation that still remembered. This was not an accident. This was economic Darwinism applied to food. Only crops that served industrial efficiency survived. The rest were reclassified as weeds, ornamentals, or forgotten entirely. Yet the spring beauty continues to thrive without human cultivation, without fertilizers, without irrigation systems. It grows in rich deciduous forests from Minnesota to Georgia, carpeting the forest floor each spring with delicate blooms. The plant mocks our agricultural system by demonstrating that abundance does not require industry. It only requires attention. Here is what grocery stores will never tell you. Wild foods are nutritionally denser than their cultivated counterparts. The spring beauty tuber contains complex carbohydrates, natural sugars, and trace minerals absorbed from undisturbed forest soil. Unlike commercial potatoes bred for size and shelf life, fairy spuds developed in an ecosystem where only the most nutrient-dense individuals survive to reproduce. They taste sweet because they are concentrated energy, not because they were engineered in a laboratory. When you compare the spring beauty to a conventional potato, the difference is stark. A commercial potato is approximately 79% water, with most of its calories coming from simple starches that spike blood sugar. The fairy spud is denser, sweeter, and provides a slower energy release due to its complex carbohydrate profile. But you will never see these comparisons in agricultural journals. There is no funding to study crops that cannot be patented, mechanized, or controlled. The research goes where the profit goes. Meanwhile, the spring beauty continues producing superior nutrition for free, requiring no human intervention, no pesticides, no genetic modification. It simply exists, waiting for us to remember that food once grew without our permission. Growing or foraging spring beauty is no longer just about food. It is about reclaiming sovereignty over what we eat. When you dig these tubers from the forest floor, you are participating in a tradition that predates agriculture itself. You are accessing a food source that requires no corporate intermediary, no supply chain, no purchase. This terrifies the industrial food system. A population that can identify and harvest wild foods is a population that cannot be fully controlled through economic dependency. The spring beauty represents something more dangerous than nutrition. It represents autonomy. The knowledge of where and when to find these plants, how to harvest them sustainably, and how to prepare them is knowledge that cannot be monetized or regulated. It exists outside the system. This is why foraging education has been systematically discouraged in favor of farming education. Farming creates dependence on seeds, tools, land ownership, and market access. Foraging creates independence. The distinction is not botanical, it is political. Every spring beauty tuber you harvest is a small act of rebellion against a food system designed to keep you purchasing, not producing. Nature designed abundance. Industry designed scarcity. Choose accordingly. The spring beauty is easily identified by its distinctive flowers and growth pattern. In early spring, often while snow still patches the forest floor, the plant emerges with grass-like leaves and delicate five-petaled flowers. The flowers are white to pale pink with darker pink veining, creating a striped appearance. They bloom in clusters on short stems, carpeting the forest floor in deciduous woodlands. The plant thrives in rich, moist soil under the canopy of oak, maple, and beech trees. To harvest the tubers, wait until after the plant has flowered, typically in late April or early May, depending on your latitude. Use a small digging tool to gently excavate the soil around the plant's base. The tubers are small, round, and slightly off-white to tan in color. They grow at depths of 2 to 6 inches. Harvest only what you need, leaving the majority of the population intact to ensure future yields. The plant reproduces both from seed and from tubers, so sustainable harvesting is simple. Never take more than 30% of what you find. Replant some tubers as you harvest. The spring beauty rewards patience and respect. Unlike crops that demand constant attention, this plant asks only that you remember it exists, that you notice it, that you harvest it with gratitude, not greed. The fairy spud requires no elaborate preparation to reveal its excellence. The simplest method is often the best. Rinse the tubers gently to remove soil, keeping the thin skin intact. Eat them raw for the full crisp texture and nutty sweetness, similar to eating freshwater chestnuts or young hazelnuts. The raw tubers make an excellent trail food, providing quick energy without the blood sugar crash of processed snacks. For a cooked preparation, toss the tubers with a small amount of butter or oil and roast them at high heat for 10-15 minutes until golden and slightly caramelized. The sugars concentrate during roasting, creating a flavor profile similar to roasted chestnuts with a hint of potato. Some foragers pickle the tubers in a light brine with vinegar and herbs, creating a sweet tart snack that stores for months. Others add them to stir-fries, where their crunchy texture holds up better than conventional potatoes. The key is minimal processing. These tubers spent millennia perfecting their flavor without human intervention. They do not need our improvement. They need only our recognition. When you eat a spring beauty tuber, you are tasting what food meant before agriculture complicated it. You are accessing a flavor that exists outside the corporate flavor database. This is cuisine as rebellion. The spring beauty will never appear in grocery stores, and that is precisely its power. It cannot be commodified, cannot be controlled, cannot be packaged into the artificial scarcity that drives modern food economics. It grows freely, abundantly, across millions of acres of eastern North American forests. It requires no human cultivation, no irrigation, no fertilizer, no pesticide. It simply exists, producing food for anyone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. This is the future of food security, not through technological escalation, but through ecological literacy. The more wild foods you can identify, the less dependent you become on systems designed to extract your money in exchange for inferior nutrition. The spring beauty teaches a philosophy that terrifies agribusiness. It teaches that abundance is the natural state, that food diversity increases, not decreases, when humans stop trying to control every aspect of the ecosystem, that the best foods are often free. The seeds of revolution are not planted in rows. They are scattered by wind, buried by animals, and discovered by those willing to look beyond the supermarket. The spring beauty is not a relic of the past. It is a preview of a post-industrial food system where knowledge, not capital, determines who eats well. Learn to recognize the spring beauty. Walk your local forests in early spring. Notice the delicate striped flowers carpeting the woodland floor. Dig carefully, harvest respectfully, taste what we almost forgot. This is not nostalgia. This is practical rebellion against a food system that profits from your ignorance of wild abundance.